Swamiji to please guide us through your talk. Yeah, and the dignitaries can take their seats, please.
మైక్ సిస్టమ్ అది స్టాండ్ దొరికింది దొరికింది
I request all of you to please put your phones on silent.
Very pleasant good evening to everyone here. As we walked in, our president, he said, maybe I should speak on Vedic grandparenting instead of Vedic parenting. And that set me up thinking that if the grandparents are addressed, probably the children mostly connect to the grandparents more than the parents. Asalu kanna vaddi muddekku. On the outset, let me confess, I personally have no experience with that particular department. Being a sannyasi, parenting is not my field of work. But for the last 30 plus years that I have engaged with different age groups, primarily the children and the youth. Children from kindergarten to the 12th grade and the youth from 18 to 28. Having seen several thousands of children, just my observation. My observations as guided by our Vedic principles. That's why in the very title I said Vedic Parenting. If somebody were to question me right in the beginning, भाई तुमको क्या experience है? This is not according to my experience, it is according to what our Shastras have prescribed. According to that. Because the beauty of our Shastra is that it is flexible in its application. When I say flexible, I don't mean that it makes it convenient, but it is practical. And in each generation, that scripture has to be interpreted and given to that particular generation in such a way that they appreciate and in alignment with that Dharma Shastra or Shastra itself to uplift one's own life living and our experiences. So getting into the topic, today's age is quite a gadget-filled age. Does everybody have a cell phone with them? Is that cell phone a smartphone? At least something that we carry is smart. There is a gadget. If you look at the front here, there are so many gadgets. So every time we purchase a gadget, the younger generation probably will open the entire package, pick out that electronic instrument, quickly charge it and start using it as though they are born with some chip inside which tells them how to use it. Whereas the earlier generation, the phones that we carry, when it goes off, we don't know how to shut it. So once, like how Namrata had just announced, that please turn your cell phones to silent mode. After having announced, as I started speaking right in the beginning, somebody's cell phone started ringing. So I gave her a little time, I said, please turn it off. Another 2 minutes later, again it started ringing. So I looked at her and very guiltily she got up and said, off ella cheyado naku teliyadandi. I do not know how to turn it off or put it in mute. So we do get the gadgets, but we probably have never paid attention to how to use it other than the primary use, which is swipe on the green or swipe on the red. Receive call or not receive call. Whichever number is there, then you click it and it goes. Sometimes the messages come on WhatsApp, so the phone call also will go in WhatsApp. Sometimes the message in whichever app it comes, we start calling from there. Immaterial of it. But the children, as I said, they come with a specific keenness that they know everything as though by pre-design. Along with that package, one tiny little book that it comes with, which none of us pay attention to. Up until that day when that particular gadget suddenly stops functioning. What is that book? User manual. And that too, if you have used that user manual more than once, you know that the first few pages are not that important. It gives a lot of descriptions, lot of things about disclaimers. You turn directly to the last 2 pages. What is the last 2 pages talking about? Troubleshooting. What we require is that troubleshooting. Provided that box and that little user manual is kept safely somewhere. Usually what happens, that which is required is already taken, the rest of it is thrown away, trashed. And if you have somebody skilled around you, or you know the skill, you go on to the Google. I believe that next to Paramatma, the definition is Sarvavyapi, Sarvashaktiman, Sarvajna. Next to Paramatma, I think it is Google Amatali. Sarvavyapi, Sarvashaktiman. So we immediately Google how to use. There will be one or two videos in your own language, so you know where to check. So every gadget comes with a user manual, and the user manual definitely certainly has the troubleshooting given. The child is born, the child does not come with a special package of the cables included or the troubleshooting book with it, isn't it? Earlier in a Hindu society, we used to have a joint family system. A joint family system wherein even if the younger generation did not know how to, in various things that they are experiencing for the first time, there would be somebody elderly. A network of elderly people, not just one or two, a network of elderly people, and it would ease the burden on the younger parents that the elder people will jump in and help the younger generation, because they have several such experiences of their own and others as well. In earlier days, now in the this generation or the present generation or the parent generation, or a little older than that, the hum do hamare do concept came in. Prior to that, each family had a football team or a volleyball team. మీరు ఎంతమంది మేము ఆరుగురం అన్నదమ్ముళ్ళము ముగ్గురు అక్క చెల్లెళ్ళు. So it is a volleyball team with extra players. Usually in a volleyball team you have 6 plus 3 extras to rotate in. That was the largeness of the families then. Today it is maybe 1.5 kid per family on an average. And we live, earlier it was joint family, now what we live is called, I call it disjoint family. It's not joint anymore. So the volume of experience and wisdom, we have designed it in such a way that we are completely away from it, devoid of that experience. I'm not saying that the parents don't do a good job, but in their experience what happens, I call, how many of you are the first child in your family? Please raise your hands. First child. Keep raising. So the first child in the family which you are, hands risen, you are called the experiment of the family. No, you can put your hands away. Why do I call it as an experiment? There are many friends of mine who are doctors, especially that who work in the emergency. So they say the intensity with which the parent comes in the middle of the night with the child, we can tell easily whether it is the first child, second child or the third child. Kangar ekkuva unte, then it is the first child. I'll give you another example. When the child is crying, we have this habit of putting a pacifier into their mouth. This is what I have observed. The first child, when the pacifier falls down, the parents have read the manual. So they pick that pacifier, boil water, put it, sterilize it, cool it, and then plug it back into the mouth. First child. By the time it is the second child, the parent now has enough experience. So what does the parent do? Picks that pacifier up, and then put it back in. the evolution of the parenting. By the time it is the third child, oh, it is enormous difference. They don't put the effort to pick it up. They keep looking at the child, waiting for the child to have an eye contact. Once the child has an eye contact, then the parent guides. उठा, लगा मुंह में, चुप. Where is the intensity of picking it up, boiling it, putting it into a sterilized environment and then getting it to the point wherein you don't even pick it up. You just indicate. So we learn through our experiences. In this learning, many times we would have felt, wish there would have been somebody who would have given us a guidelines as to these are the norms, these are the baselines based on which you run raising the family. You will have the optimal result. Unlike these gadgets which have a remote control, our children are not born with that remote control. Wish they were born with a remote control. So easy, right? What was the best in the Corona times? Many of us experienced what was the best option when somebody was talking too much. Either mute them or you silent your speaker. So if there was a remote to our children, we would not have spent so much of energy shouting at them, trying to calm them down. All that we would have done is mute. More importantly, I would have personally used TV. You have that increased brightness. When the child is like, increase brightness, increase the intelligence. Wish it would be that easy. Nothing of child raising is a shortcut or a easy method. In our scriptures, the way they have seen, whether it was a boy or a girl, when I look into the historical relevance of when did it become that the girl of the family became a burden, I see that it is in the past 200 to 250 years. Prior to that, the girl born was called the Lakshmi of the family. Many still follow the tradition, but there are certain aberrations here and there. The course correction was required. There was no vehement need for just a boy or a girl. Anything, it was considered as the prasad of Bhagavan. And the opportunity of the parent to provide the right environment for the child to grow up responsible, value-based contributor to the society. A very important point. Responsible, value-based, positive contributor to the society. That was the goal. That the child should not become a burden onto the society. That was the responsibility on the parents. So in raising the child, what was the basic criteria? Now I'll take an example that will make it easier for us, because we have studied those stories so many times that we can connect with it more efficiently. In the Mahabharata, how many were the Pandavas? I should have asked. Among the Pancha Pandavas, how many were there? So they were 5. I don't know, should I experiment? Can somebody give me the chronological order of those 5 brothers? Okay, one child. Stand up and say it loudly. One second. Child. గట్టిగా చెప్పు.
Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadeva.
Give him a good hand. As elders, parents, we should be knowing it, but I was more intrigued when the child raised a hand, and I felt happy that he was on point. So there were 5 people: Dharma, Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadeva. They were all admitted into the Gurukula. The Gurukula that they were admitted to was Drona's Gurukula. Actually, it was not owned by Drona. It was created so that Drona could be the teacher there. It was created by the Hastinapura government on the insistence of Bhishma. See, when you have 1 child or 2 child, maximum 3 children, you take the children to Gurukula. When you have 105 children, you create a school for yourself. 100 Kauravas and 5 Pandavas, is that taking them to a Gurukula, if there is a easier disposition, is to provide that room for a Gurukula to be created, find the apt teacher for it. And they found Guru Dronacharya, who was very, very efficient. And as a part of the, in today's language, there was an MOU signed. Memorandum of Understanding. What was the MOU? That this particular Gurukula, which is being patronized by the Hastinapura government, will allow only students of a Kshatriya background. So therefore, when he rejected a certain child called and Ekalavya, because their lineage was not something belonging to the Kshatriya, and he had that understanding promise given, so he limited it only to Kshatriyas. And for his benevolence, if I have to say, Dronacharya had a Baddha Shatru. Who was his Baddha Shatru? Drupada. They both studied in the same Gurukula. The promise was not fulfilled. Therefore, he was very mad at Drupada. So, if I bring it to today's relevance, if there is somebody who has not fulfilled your promise given to you, would you allow their child to come and benefit from your knowledge and wisdom? Would you allow them into your Gurukula? See how instantly you said no. The benevolence and greatness of that Acharya Drona was that though Drupada was his Shatru, there was no alignment. His son Drishtadyumna, when came for the application, he used to talk about all of this to his wife Kripi Devi, who was Kripacharya's sister. And Kripi Devi says, isn't he your enemy? Why would you allow your enemy's child? So Dronacharya said, my enmity is towards Drupada and not his innocent son. He has got nothing wrong. Therefore, this knowledge and wisdom should not be blocked by reaching to him. And he belongs to the Kshatriya. Therefore, he should be allowed. Magnanimity of Dronacharya. Some movies that we see here and there, not that we have studied Mahabharata, it requires a thorough study before we can even make a commentary on it or loose comments on it. But we have seen many movies, especially that DVSK, Dana Veera Sura Karna. Such movies, they make a very biased attempt and not give the actuality of what has happened as stated in Mahabharata. So in that Gurukula, with a magnanimous teacher like Dronacharya, all that story to just prove that the teacher was an apt teacher. When the Shishya came to the Gurukula, Gurukula, the first 2-3 years, there was not something specific taught to the child other than teaching the Gayatri mantra and Sandhya mantra. The rest of the time, it was for the teacher to bond with the student and the student to bond with the teacher, so that the teacher understands what are the different capacities, abilities, potential skills that each child carries. More importantly, why was that Gayatri mantra given right at that age? Did the child understand the meaning? Probably not. At 4 years of age, what would they understand? Probably not the depth of the meaning of that Gayatri mantra. But what it did was, right at that age, they were taught a very specific skill. And that skill was to prepare the mind to bring it to a focal point with willpower. Raising the child, the first and foremost thing that was taught to the child was the ability to control their own mind, emotions, how to deal with it. What does Gayatri mantra do? Any mantra japa is not meant for a certain marathon early in the morning. Like how many people do the japa is they have to finish a certain number of repetitions, therefore they will rush through it. And shamelessly, I also accept, when I was a child, when I was growing up, japa meant delay to my dinner, delay to my breakfast. So me and my brother, in the evening, after we came back outside from the outside, after playing, we would take a shower, and the rule was that we should be chanting Vishnu Sahasranama. How much time does Vishnu Sahasranama take? Half an hour. We used to complete it under 8 minutes. Even Bhagwan doesn't understand. Let alone we understand it. Probably that Vishnu would be sitting there looking at us thinking, "Ye bol kya rahe hai?" Because it is more like the chore, that discipline that has been kept to finish it as quickly as possible so that I can get to the next. Here in my case it was dinner. So we would finish it under 8 minutes. I don't know what we chanted. So how, sir? I don't have an answer. Verily the point that the japa that was introduced is not meant for a marathon, which is how we most of us deal with it. It was taught in such a scientific method wherein it was synchronized with the breathing, and on some other day I will explain that entire japa process. But that synchronization with the breathing involved that the mind came into a focal point and you were taught how to compartmentalize and withdraw that mind and put it into one focal point. That prepared mind then was introduced to education. Many of us tell our children, scold our children, and in our scolding spree, we do often say, "Po, Sadhu Babu, go concentrate on your studies." Has anybody taught how to concentrate? Isn't that the first starting step? Now, if your child is asking for a cycle or a moped, the first 3 months, you are the one running behind the child, holding so that the child learns how to balance. You are worried once the child starts getting a license and start going out. Sometimes even without the license, the child starts using it. You are worried at home, you want to know, have you reached safely? At least text. Why are we so worried? because of the safety of the child. Now, untrained mind we are letting loose into the world, not knowing even how to bring that mind into control, into balance, into a focal point. And we are introducing them to massive schemes of education system. I hear there are schools where the teaching begins at 6 o'clock in the morning and goes all the way till 6 p.m. I have never studied that hard, that long, ever in my life. Growing up, did you all study that way? None of us. But the system, that's why I call it a massive system of education. Now, before they go there, have they got the capacity to understand, assimilate? Is the mind present? Now, sitting here, when I look at people, somebody asked, Swamiji, will you do a PowerPoint presentation? I said, no, I am against it. Because even with the lights on, with me talking on the top of my lungs and looking at people, people can fall asleep. Darken the room, what is the guarantee there is anybody listening? I would rather look into the eyes and look for confirmation of understanding rather than finish a job through the PowerPoint. Even sitting here, because I can see, I can clearly tell how many of you are physically present but mentally not here. How do I read it? There is a good smiling face, and then the eyes are looking at me, but they are not focused at me. They are looking as though through me. The focal point is somewhere else. And when there is a joke or when there is something critical where others are also laughing, others are also participating, suddenly they turn around. Kya hua? So in one such gathering, there was somebody who was constantly going off. So the person who was sitting next to him kept asking him, saying, what was the joke? So this particular person in quick short succession gave the joke. After 2-3 times when this repeated, the fellow who was being asked, very irritated with this disturbance, he looked at him and said, joke tha, haso. How does it matter? It was something to laugh at, no laugh. So even while sitting here as adults, our minds can go distracted. So I go back to the question, have we as parents taught our children, we ask them, we expect of them to be focused. Have we ever taught them how to focus? About 100 plus people are sitting. I would be shocked even if there is one hand raised. Which is the fact. But that was the first thing taught in raising a child. How to control the mind, balance the mind, bring it to a focal point, get it ready so that it can start applying, consume the information, transform it into knowledge, and then look at it through experiments and experiences as wisdom which is born within. The first step was to create that hemisphere inside so that their mind is available and ready to be used. Then comes to the teaching part. All the Pandavas and Kauravas who were there in that Gurukula, they were taught some common syllabus. They were given Kshatriya Vidya, how to run the kingdom, how to administer the kingdom, how to manage different things, how to arrange an army, how to create an army, how to strengthen the army, how to empower the army, how to make an attack, how to make a defense, various things. These were common that was taught to all of them. Chakra Vyuha, Padma Vyuha, Garuda Vyuha, all of this was taught common syllabus. But though there was a common syllabus given, it was the adults, the parents, the teachers, the well-wishers, their job to identify specific skill sets of each individual and give them room to bring that specific skill set to light, to give room for that to be practiced, strengthened and flourish in that particular field. It will be difficult to go through all the 105, so I will stick to 5. Dharmaraj Yudhishthira, he learned Kshatra Vidya. Along with the Kshatra Vidya, what else was he good at? So let us look at the specific instruments of war that each one of them learned to become masters of it. Yudhishthira focused and learnt specific skill set on the spear. Astra Shastra. Do you understand the difference between Astra and Shastra? Astra is that which is launched to a target, whereas Shastra is handheld for both offensive or defensive purposes. So usually I conclude this with an example. An angry mother holding a balan in her hand. That balan, is it an astra or shastra? Your answer should be, it depends on the child at what distance they are. If they are accessible, it becomes shastra. If they are inaccessible, it becomes astra. Now you understand the difference between astra and shastra. So in the astra shastra department, Yudhishthira picked up spear and he became a master of it. Bhima picked up 2 skills. One was Gada Yuddha and the second was Malla Yuddha. Gada Yuddha and Malla Yuddha. Arjuna picked up Gandiva, which is bow and arrow. He was a skilled archer in his times. Just like how in the field of cricket we say Sachin Tendulkar is the god of cricket. In those days he was called the god of archery. That was the skill set with which Arjuna was recognized. Nakula and Sahadeva became masters at wielding a sword. Each one different instrument. It was not like one size fits all, which is what we do. Our expectation is the children that we have, all of them have to become a doctor, a chartered accountant, a lawyer or an engineer, software, hardware, otherwise you will be left nowhere. One of these fields. And what is the most neglected field? Humanities and teaching. In Telugu there is a saying, Yemi Ranivadu Badi Pantudu. అంటే ఏం చేయలేనటువంటి వాడు, where the opportunities are not that big, then they become badi pantudu. That is the key for the next generation to evolve, which is teaching. That is the key for nation building. That is the key to instill pride and worthfulness in the child. And we have neglected it generation after generation after generation, at least after independence. So each one of them got a specific skill set which the teacher experimented, understood what they were getting good at and gave them extra training so that they could become masters at that, astra or shastra. And there was no, I call this a kida, bug of comparative analysis. Supposing you have a field, a soil, beautiful piece of land, and for gardening you have sown different kinds of plants. You have sown a few coconut plants, you have sown a guava or a sapota, chiku, and some flower giving plants, jasmine or the hibiscus, mandaram. The jasmine, as soon as you plant it, within 6 months it starts flowering. You can't then compare to the other plants and say, చిన్నగా ఉన్నా ఇంత త్వరగా ఇస్తుంది, నీకేమైంది అడ్డగాడిలా పెరుగుతున్నది, దేనికి ఫలం లేదు. Each one has its own rhythm and time and a season. But what do? We compare our children with our own children. If not, we compare our children with the cousins or somebody else, somebody living close by. కిందింటి వాడిని చూడు, పై ఇంటి వాడిని చూడు, పక్కింటి వాడిని చూడు. This comparative analysis makes them inferior or heavily superior, but not original. The originality is lost in this comparison. So each one was picked for that skill set, and that skill set was given, that was trained to become masters at it. And this is called Vritti Vidya. Along with the Vritti Vidya, each one of them took a separate school of thought to become masters at. Yudhishthira was known for his Dharma Shastra. Bhima was known for Paka Shastra. Rightly so. He was the heavily built and he had a very large appetite. So therefore, going into Paka Shastra very designedly served his purpose. And he became a master at it. I'll come back to Arjuna a little later. Nakula and Sahadeva. Nakula became a veterinary doctor. And Sahadeva became the astrologer. He was very good with astrology and astronomy. Each one separate school of thought. One skilled in as a wide variety of astrology, astronomy, another completely veterinarian. Imagine if our child wants to say, I want to become a chef. Parents will have nightmares. What wrong have we done? My child wants to become a cook. So I told my child very clearly, you can do cooking on the side, but become an engineer. You get a job as an engineer and do the cooking on your side as a hobby. Our own priorities are not straightened. They are not aligned. I get the point. I get the point that we are looking at having a secured life for our child. And I see prominently two reasons. Not long ago, we were in an enslaved environment for more than 760 years. As soon as we got independent, at that time, we were world's third largest population. Because USSR was still a united country. It was not broken, fragmented. So first was China, second was USSR, third was India. And today, we are first at something. Our population is the highest growing. So one is that where we have lived in an oppressed environment and not have opportunities for ourselves as Bharatiya. Second, that whatever is the skill set, you have to struggle, you have to fight with 1.43 billion population. So you take these kinds of skills which are maybe not profitable, maybe not give you a good dividend at the end of it. You will be the one child who will not have a secured, financially secured life. Therefore, take to something that will at least give you certain security. I understand the parent's mind, but what gets crushed? It is like trying to fit a round bolt on a square peg, or a square bolt rejection and revolt from inside. But in the ancient days, the first and foremost that the teacher did, the parent did, is to identify the skill sets of the child. Now for Arjuna, who I did not mention, I mentioned Yudhishthira, Bhima, Nakula, Sahadeva. They had, if you say that Vritti Vidya as profession, and the rest of it as the other talents and skills that they have developed. It's 1 in a million that have the profession and passion match. That was Arjuna. He did not focus on any other skill set other than the Shastra Vidya, Astra Vidya. He learned both as a profession and a passion. It was uniquely only the archery. The rest of them got skilled in other things, but he focused only on that. Meaning there was a room for the child to learn multiple skill sets, multiple avenues, master them, and one has to understand not every child is made of the same mindset. Born to the same parents, they could be different. Therefore, Arjuna had a completely different avenue where his passion and profession were the same. So what does the Vedic literature suggest? That each one of us, born into this world, we are born with certain tendencies inherent in each one of us. Born to the same parents, born at the same time almost. We call them twins or triplets. Each one of those triplets is a completely unique character. They cannot be similar. If you say I am making puri, just a mundane example, one would say geeli sabji, the other would say sukhi sabji, the other would say no sabji, only shakar. And you will see these tendencies because there is an argument about nurturing versus nurturing. At that young age where even as a mother, as a parent, you would not be able to identify them or differentiate them because they are twins or triplets. But you will start identifying them by their choices that they like or dislike at that age where the nature or nurture has yet to take shape. We are born with certain inherent tendencies. As a parent, it is yours and our job to identify amongst those the most prominent which can be molded into, which can be nurtured into talents, potentials and skills. But one has to be honest with the next generation. Are we giving room for that child to find these talents that they are inherently born with and we provide the room for it? A good exposure so that they start becoming skillful in that particular field. And now all of this has to be tuned. It is not the teacher's job, but it is the parent's job. What is the fine tuning? That all of these talents, potential, skill sets and the Vritti Vidya that is learnt is channelized in the most dharmic proposition. It cannot be ena kena prakarena. It has to be based on a very steady platform, and that steady platform is called Swadharma. Dharma personalized at the individual's level. Dharma is absolute at a certain standpoint, but it is the parent's job to personalize it to that child, that mental texture that the child is born with, to say that this is how you have to live the dharmic life. Now, what does dharma mean? Let me put it in the most simplistic Because when you go into understanding Dharma, there are several Dharma scriptures. Dharma Shastra is very huge, but let me put it in a very simple way to understand. Dharma is that which is the inherent, nascent aspect or quality of that particular vastu. Remove that aspect, that vastu does not remain like that vastu anymore. That becomes its dharma. For example, if there is water, what is water's dharma? Wetness and to quench the thirst. In whatever state that it is, whether it is in a gaseous state, whether it is in a solid state, whether it is in a liquid state, does it not have the quality to wet the surface? Ice, it wets. Water vapor, it wets. Liquid format, it wets. That which does not change in time or place. That which remains as its inherent aspect. Fire, what does it do? It has two aspects, to illumine and to burn. I cannot say that the fire in India has more firepower. It has more heat, and the fire in say Siberia, it is cold. The fire, if it is cold, it is not called fire. Sugar, what is its lakshana? Sweetness is its lakshana. Therefore, even the sugar substitutes that are provided have to have a tinge of sweetness to it. Otherwise, it will not be called as sweet. Because the sweetness is its dharma. Similarly, our swadharma as a human, first, even whoever named us as a species, we are named as human being, not human doing. We are called human being. So as a parent, it is my responsibility to raise the child to easily adapt to the state of being when they are honest with their own tendencies, skill sets and potential. You take it away from it and try to rub something else in, they would become something good at it, but they would not have a sense of satisfaction, sense of peace, sense of gratification. When I was growing up in the field of tennis, there was a very good player. His name was Andre Agassi. You all have heard that name? After he married Steffi Graf, settled in Las Vegas, after retirement, he wrote a personal journal. And when I read it, I was shocked. I was shocked to learn that tennis, he hates it from the bottom of his heart. His father was an immigrant into America and he wanted his son to make a name, and he saw the field of tennis to be something where it can be made and it also will make good amount of money, financial security. Therefore, he forced his son to get into that game. We would call it child abuse in today's language. We would call it childhood trauma in today's language. But the father was vehement that he made him into a very good tennis player. But through and through his entire life, being the number one in that game, what is his satisfaction level at the end of the day? Zero. It's not like it is too painful, I don't want to. It is not like I don't like it. He hates it from the bottom of his heart. Does not want to be on that field. after Abdul Kalam ji became the president, there was an interview happening. The interviewer asked, "Sir, now that you have become the first citizen of this country, it's a great achievement that many would not have the opportunity for. You are successful and happy. What do you have to say about it?" He said something very, very beautiful, very, very important. Pay attention. He said, "I may be deemed as successful, but happy I am not. I would have been happy if I were allowed to be the Veena player that I wanted to be." He was known for his Veena playing skills, which he learned on the side. But because I had a large family and I was the only educated one to this level, and my job gave that kind of opportunity of financial stability, therefore I went into this field, and then that field decided that I should focus on the missiles. I became the missile man of India. I may have definitely gotten good success, but happy I definitely am not. If I would be left alone with my Veena, that is the most happiest. And if in my field, if I can find happiness, he is not in designing those missiles. It seems he went to I think it was in Tamil Nadu, he went to a place where there were kids who had some polio and their legs were not functional. And he felt very sad for those kids. So he went back, the composite material that he uses in the missile technology, because even those crutches that they were wearing were so barbarically heavy that each one would weigh about 4.5 kilos. To weigh two of them and to run around was not easy. So he went back, he put his research and said, "I created a composite material with which it was strong, it was light, it was also kind of flexible," and designed the prosthetic limb for the child. And when I saw the child get liberated from their burden and play soccer in their new prosthetics, that was the happy moment where my skill set that I had developed was functionally useful for many. So a dharmic upbringing, wherein the child is tuned to that Swadharma, wherein they become a good citizen, a productive contributor to the society, and somebody who is a stable lighthouse for others to look up to. That is the fulfillment of parenting. When as a teacher, you know what is the greatest satisfaction? When I see the child who has been taught for several years, grows up in those value systems and accomplishes something satisfying for that child, at that moment, the greatest joy which no money can buy. If me, who has not given birth to child, sees that kind of a contentment in others' children, definitely that would be the greatest contentment of the parent. Wherein, see, the child, when he goes into the world, he has to go with the identification of the parent. Yavaraya nevu palana kodukuni, palana kutuni. But where is the satisfaction for the parent? When somebody comes and says, "Are you the parent of such and such?" Oh boy, he is such a gem. And then automatically the chest swells up. Immense satisfaction that I have given something beautiful to the society, which contributes to the best of the society, for the upliftment of the society. So what I have covered is, with the examples of Pandavas, I have given first thing to focus on the child upbringing is to teach them how to manage their own mind, manage their own balancing of the mind and to bring it to a focal point where it is available for the best of the use. Identifying skills, potentials and talent and giving room for that talent to be flourished, nourished. And then the vritti dharma also to be focused upon so that they can find a firm footing out into the world. I think the given time to me is concluding, so I will stop here.
You can continue that.
No, there is one more. The second aspect of it is, if you have any questions based on what I have spoken, I am being very specific, no out of syllabus questions. Based on what I have spoken, this is your time to ask those questions, because usually a Hindu community always has a complaint. There are only rules and regulations, there is nobody that answers my question. So here is your opportunity. Prashant?
Can anybody be master?
One second. Let me pass the mic to you so that others can also hear and I need not repeat your question.
Can anybody be master without the interest in the subject?
As I gave the example of Andre Agassi, if there is that kind of over strict disciplinary father, it can be brought, but it will not be satisfying. But it will be satisfying and successful when there is that inherent talent in that individual.
Focus is not there.
Focusing will not be available on that subject.
That is why I said, if there is that extra disciplinary environment created, then that focus also out of fear can be created. Out of fear, but it will not be satisfying. Anticipating that there will be a question like this, I gave the example of Andre Agassi. Yes, पीछे में एक हाथ उठा लो.
Namaste, sir. What is the ideal way to teach your child to focus? What is the ideal way?
That is one topic I specifically avoided, saying I will talk about it later. I will give you in quick pointers, though I will not go into deep elaboration of it, because it is a very key point that has to be understood by the parents so it can be taught to the next generation. So quickly going to it. Mind means thoughts. When we say focused mind, concentrated mind, it means focused on one particular thought or one particular theme in which the mind and its thoughts are running. Presently what happens? Our mind, when I take up a subject, when I take up a particular field, there are other fields in which it runs. So the concentration or the focal point gets defocused. Now in the field of chemistry, when you say concentrated hydrochloric acid, what does it mean? There is nothing other than HCl in it. There is nothing other than hydrochloric acid. But when you say it is diluted, what do we mean by it? There is something else other than HCl which is added, which usually is water. So that mixture is called, it's no more concentrated, it is called diluted. Similarly with the thoughts, when there is one theme that is entertained and I can stick with that one theme, that is called concentrated mind. But when it gets diffused into multiple layers of themes, that is called a diluted mind, unfocused mind. So I have defined what is a focused mind and what is not a focused mind. How do I get the defocused mind, unfocused mind into something that can be at will trained to focus onto something? So the texture of mind has to be understood. The texture of mind is filled with thoughts and emotions. Now these thoughts and emotions, if I am triggering it at will for a certain thing, then I bear the responsibility of seeing it through. But the problem comes when I do not know from where They say the thought cannot be, or the mind cannot be directly controlled. It is like the child in the family. When you want to control the child, especially when there are guests at home, they will misbehave the maximum. The mind is also like that. The misbehavior of the mind is the highest when you want to pull it to a certain direction. So this particular aspect of mind which is not controllable, because the gushing thoughts, emotions and the energy with which it happens, it is too difficult to control. So our rishis have seen that the mind has a very intimate relationship with our breathing. Have you seen Tom and Jerry growing up? The caricatures that they draw when Tom or Jerry or that bulldog, when they get angry, how do they show it? How do they depict it? There are no dialogues. They show the face has become red, and then the air that they are breathing is fast, shallow, and it is like a puff. So when you go back home, please experiment it. आज का आपका बलि बकरा. Try to irritate them only to see how their breathing is. It will be shallow, it will be fast, unrhythmic. At this moment, how is your mind? How is your breathing? There is a certain rhythm to it. It is a little deep, and there is a tune to it. Mind, when it is calm, the breathing is calm. When the breathing is agitated, the mind is agitated. When the mind is agitated, the breathing is agitated. So there is this inherent, intimate relationship between breathing and mind. Mind cannot be controlled directly, but breathing can be controlled. When somebody is having a fit of anger or frustration, they are getting angry or disappointed, what do you say first? Breathe. Breathe. Breathe slowly. Don't we say it? Because there is that intimate relationship. Just like the fan, there is a regulator. Breathing is the regulator for the thinking. So what do? Teach the child to sit in one calm posture, either on a chair or on the floor, preferably on the floor, and then ask them to breathe in and out consciously, slowest inhalation possible, slowest exhalation possible. In breathing technique, there are 4 steps: Kumbhaka, Rechaka and Puraka. The Rechaka and Puraka is inhalation, Rechaka is the exhalation. There are 2 steps of Kumbhaka. One is holding the breath inside, Antar Kumbhaka, and leaving the breath outside and holding it outside, Bahir Kumbhaka. We don't have to do any Kumbhaka. There is no restraint on the breathing. Slow, easy breathing, inhale, exhale. You do it 11 number of times. Once you do this, the agitated mind with which it is gushing is reduced. I wouldn't say it has calmed down just by the breathing, it has reduced. The vehement force with which it was running is reduced. Now even those trickling thoughts and emotions can be channelized, should be channelized if we have to reach to a focal point. Therefore, the first thing that in any Gurukula that they were taught was a mantra and a japa. What are you doing with the japa? Supposing it is Om Namah Shivaya, just taking some random mantra. Random doesn't mean it is not powerful. So, when you breathe in, you breathe consciously. As you are breathing out, chant as long as the breath lasts. Om Namah Shivaya. Again breathe in. Do this 21 times. Observing the breath 11 times and repeating the mantra 21 times. You would find that the mind now has come to a focal point. Now in this, there are several layers of energy that has been comprehensively brought together to that particular moment. sitting straight, breathing consciously, you are taking in oxygen. That is first layer of energy produced. By observing the breath, the amount of thoughts that would be running out is also expending your energy. When you are constantly scolding somebody, after a while, you feel drained. You have done nothing, but you feel drained. But that drained energy, when it is conserved, energy conserved is energy generated. So that is the second layer of energy. Now the third and most potential format of energy is the mantra that you are chanting. You introduce that mantra. Mantra is a potential form of energy that you are consciously introducing into your brain stream, mind stream, thereby energizing your mind. 3 layers of energy introduced, conserved. Now they have come to a dammed position, meaning they are all conserved. Now providing the channel where you choose to use that energy is called the concentrated effort. Teach them slowly, step by step. Initially you ask them to sit down, close their eyes for 2 minutes. Then introduce that while they are sitting, they observe the breathing 11 times. Then introduce the mantra. Over 2-3 months, you slowly make them get into this habit. Now once you have inculcated this habit, the best part of this is, it is the most user friendly. Wherever you go, thankfully you are breathing. The breath is with you. You don't have to carry any other extra gadget. It is with you. All that you have to do is focus on it, slow it down, inhale, exhale slowly, and then mentally chant with your exhalation the mantra. Why am I saying that it has to be synchronized with your exhalation? Let us do a small experiment. Can you all loudly at the top of your voice say Hari Om? Very good. Now breathe in and say Hari Om while breathing in. क्या मजाक कर रहे हैं? Natural system of the breathing and the voice sound that is produced is that you breathe in, and while you are breathing out, the breath has to come through your voice box, the larynx. And while it comes, there is cognizable sounds made through the modulation of that larynx. So when you are breathing in, breathe consciously. While you are breathing out, let that synchronization happen and the mantra be chanted. Thereby, another principle here, at any given point of time, the mind can entertain only one thought. It runs with such speed that we feel as though multiple thoughts are running at the same time. Mind can entertain only one thought per moment. When you have engaged that mind only with that mantra, at that point what happened to all the other thoughts and emotions? They have been consciously diverted towards this mantra. All the energy that would have gone there has been conserved without trying to pressurefully try to hold on to it or to stop it. You have already stopped it. Now if these 4 steps are taught to the child, for that child to find an inspiration, who has to start doing it? As a parent, I have to first start doing it. Thereby, I set a standard for that child. This is how focus can be gained, mastered and taught. So first gain, master and then teach. Prashant, वहाँ पे हाथ उठा है.
Swamiji, sir.
Oh, you have a question?
Yeah.
I'll come to you.
So, how to find the interest of our child? Like in which area he has an interest? How do we find that?
Expose them to all different fields.
I mean,
There is something where it is a time pass.
Yeah.
There are some things wherein when they go in, they are completely zoned out of everything else. They are completely engrossed in it. Find such opportunities. While we were growing up, we did not have that many opportunities. There were not that many music teachers, that many instrument teachers, or that many other skill sets that were to be learnt or taught. But now there are so many such avenues that can be provided. Summer vacation, the child is doing nothing. Take them to these different avenues and see, observe, note what is it that encaptures their mind. Find 2, 3. Come to that one which they cherish the most. Give that opportunity to nourish that one particular skill. One second. उधर वो माता जी ने हाथ उठाया.
Pranam Guruji. We discussed about a concept that you were telling about joint families, and you called the nuclear concept to be disjoint. So now we are helpless. We are for our jobs and purposes living apart from our parents. So we are like in Hyderabad. Our parents are living in other places. So this is because we require to do it. It's not out of our choice. But now we have our kids. So my question is, how do we teach our kids about that culture of joint family?
मैं कुछ अनाउंस करने वाला था इसीलिए हंस पड़ा. See, if this thing has to be trained to the children, there has to be a regular system in which this can be given a constant exposure, which our parents, our elders, our grandparents used to give to our child in a joint family. Puja Gurudev had observed that, when I say Puja Gurudev, Swami Chinmayanand ji, who started Chinmayanand, he observed that this lacuna that was there, this missing thing that was there in each independent family, there has to be something that will fill so that the family structure can be protected and the right direction can be given. So there are 2 things that are done. One is called a regular weekly Bala Vihar, wherein our trained sevaks will gather your children for an hour and a half, teach these aspects so that they can be introduced to these different systems and they can find a growing platform. The children will benefit. But most of us have not grown up in a trained environment to understand our own Hindu ways of life. Yes, through osmosis we may have got few things, but we don't even understand why we do what we do. For such adults, there is a study group that is conducted. So that when the child is learning, you have to be at par with the child. When the child is doing, a parent should not feel, "Ye kyun time waste kar raha hai?" If the child closes the eyes and sits, observes, because it is taught in Bala Vihar, the parent is not introduced to it, then there will be a disparity within the family. So to build that bridge, there is something called study group, which also our trained volunteers come and gather about 20-30 parents together, and we go through this system through a very organized syllabus. So these are the 2 solutions that which was I was going to announce, but your question gave me the opportunity to announce it ahead of time. So Bala Vihar for children and study group for the adults. So we plan to launch it if you are all willing, ready to have it here in this very environment. Our volunteer will come here, or our volunteer already lives here. Namrata is one such who has gone through the Bala Vihar and Yuva Kendra, and her husband Prashant, he is also gone through Yuva Kendra. He will also be able to help here, and that family is right here, and they will be able to provide that guidance as soon as possible. It is your interest and participation which is key. Please take her name and number. You had a question. Prashant. Either son.
So Swamiji, I have been a teacher all my life, but my question is from the parents' point of view, because I completely understand what you are saying, and as a teacher I tried explaining this to the parents about the talents, skills and all those things. But today's parents, as we all know, I mean, they all feel that, if the child is just interested mere in coloring, okay, all the time he is coloring, and he is just not interested in academics. So the parent is under great pressure. The child has to pass this class, or some parents definitely want the child to do better than that. Just So what tips would you give to such parents? How do they handle that situation where the child is just not interested in studies? Studies means the academics, physics, chemistry, whatever, mathematics, English in school. So the parent has to be equipped to handle that, which is becoming very difficult for today's parents. What is yours?
So the question is obviously clear. No child wants to be interested in academics right in the young age. In fact, Adi Shankaracharya says very beautifully in Bhajagovindam, Balastavat krida saktaha, tarunastavat taruni saktaha, vruddhastavat chinta saktaha, parame brahmani kopina saktaha. He has already classified it beautifully. Who is the balaka? The one who is interested only in play and goofing off their time. Tarunastavat, when they become a teenager, they are interested in, you will see the change. Up until then, you have to force them to polish their shoes, keep their clothes properly. Suddenly there is a shift. They want ironed clothes. They want to appear better. मतलब interest कहीं और है. Tarunastavat, taruni sakta. Taruni in the opposite gender. Vruddhastavat. When do you understand that you have become old? When all that you do efficiently is called worrying. It is not about the age, it is the mental capacity. The day you have started efficiently worrying about everything and anything, you have become old. So a child usually is not into academics. But then, the way you teach, the way you approach the subject and make it hands-on. The teacher has about 45-50 students per classroom. May or may not be able to generate that kind of an interest in the child. Even if the teacher is the most adorable teaching skill sets. But it has to be the parent's investment in the child, wherein the parent takes time to sit with the child and go through in such a way that the child starts appreciating it. But instead we look for shortcuts. कोई आके पढ़ा के जाए, खत्म. As long as you are not invested in your own child, anybody with how much ever amount paid, how much will they be able to focus on your child? The parent's involvement in their life as an integral part is a necessity. Wherever that parent is disinterested or for whatever reasons is not able to pay that attention and time, the child loses track even in not just the skill sets, even in the academics. So please pay more attention. I cannot force beyond that. It will become too harsh. Personally कोई आएगा तो मैं धो दूंगा, पर यहाँ से मैं नहीं धोऊंगा. Okay, last question on that side. Thank you, Prashant, for taking the mic.
Namaste, Swamiji. Swamiji, how important is education now that we are seeing after putting so much time on education and getting into a profession and then realizing that we are not having happiness and then working back. So we went through that, we are working on ourselves and again we are taking our children to the same cycle of degree and then job and then this. So
Can I rephrase your question?
yeah.
How important is schooling? Because education, if you stop educating yourself, you become stagnant. However old that you grow, you have to constantly be a student learning and educating yourself. How important is education? Very important. Till the very last moment. But is the schooling system required? which is what probably you are asking.
Yeah.
Nowadays, there are some brave parents that are experimenting on homeschooling, but for which you have to dedicate most of your time with the kids. You are the teacher. Can you do that? If you can, then there is nothing like it. Otherwise, there has to be a system that the society should be provided with, so that there is an opportunity for even those that usually don't find opportunities to even step into a school. So that the society or the government or the governance has to provide. But while that is being provided, if you find that you can dedicate your time and efforts for the child, nothing like it. Most of the aberrations that come in the next generation is because as a parent, I do not find time with my own child. If you can find it, it's a very good experiment to try. Most of them that I have spoken to have been very satisfied with it. Most of them. I'm talking of me after coming back from US in the last 3 years that I have met and spoken to. But today, with the rising costs and the kind of lifestyle that we live, we usually have to have at least 2 incomes to support the family and the structure. So if that is the condition, maybe that is not the solution. That little time that you get, at least inspire them to get educated better. If you can take that time, teach them. Nothing like it. Hopefully it answers.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity, and I wish there were more parents than the grandparents, but I still am not disappointed, because now that I have exchanged this with you, it becomes your responsibility to go back home and directly put this influence on your grandchild. Children will not listen to you. Grandchild will listen to you. So find that accessibility and influence them. Don't be the Instagram or Twitter influencer. Be the personal influencer in your grandchild. That will be the best.
Thank you, Swamiji.